You're listening to Let's Talk, episode 68, brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network. Howdy, all, Father Cory Sticha. Welcome to Let's Talk, our SQPN community podcast. Glad you could join us again. Joanne is with us this week. It's just the two of us. How's it going, Joanne?
I'm doing well, Father Cory. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. We're going to talk about a subject that both of us, you can say, is near and dear to our hearts because it's very much our positions in life at this time, and that's working in a parish situation, working in a parish environment, whether it is a larger parish, or at least what I would consider a larger parish, like what Joanne works in, or a rural parish, small parish, like what I work in. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes for parishes that I don't know how many parishioners really are aware of it. Now, Joanne, how long have you worked in parishes?
Okay, now we're going to betray my... We're going to betray my age.
Rough guideline if you don't want to be too specific. No.
No. I'm just entering my 38th year of doing this. 38, 39, somewhere in there. And I started out as a musician. Okay. So that when I came fresh out of college, I was hired by the cathedral in the Diocese of Fall River to be their first cantor. Now, this is way back in 1980, folks.
Wow.
Yeah. And as a woman, it was already, being a cantor, number one, was groundbreaking. Being a woman cantor, number two, was equally groundbreaking.
Right.
And my job was to, not only on the weekends, but for all Episcopal liturgies and, celebrations, I was it. Mm-hmm. So, and my career in ministry, if you want to call it that, has kind of morphed from that point. I went back to school, got my master's degree in theology, ended up in parishes doing music, and then transitioned to being a pastoral associate. I took a little time to be a high school theology teacher for 5 years. I decided I was burnt a little, right. So I went and got out of the parishes and kept teaching, which was more interesting. Then I came back again as a pastoral associate musician and then a director of faith formation. That's where you find me now again as a director of faith formation for a 3-parish collaborative in the Diocese of Fall River, Massachusetts. It's actually New Bedford, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I am.
Yeah, I can imagine having the 3 parishes, you got to deal with all the different situations in each parish and all that. But it's a new beast. Yeah. It really is. Well, that's something. I guess I kind of laugh a little bit because for those in more urban areas, like you're in, urban and suburban areas, collaboratives are like the new hot thing. New big thing because we don't have the priests, we don't have the staffing, so now we combine the parishes. We don't have the money. That's always a big issue, and we'll talk about that probably in length. But as I think out here, we've always had collaboratives. Now we call them mission parishes, but so I'm responsible for 3 parishes. I have a collaborative or a cluster or whatever phrase you want to use.
No, I would say it's a collaborative.
But they're 2 missions, 2 small missions. But it just seems kind of funny to me. It's like, we've been doing this for a long time. Maybe you should, we got some things we could teach you about this, but it is very different environments too, because you are in larger parishes. What would you say is kind of the average size of one of the parishes, of the 3,
Ooh, see, it depends, because what they have done is they've tried to put parishes together that have varying sizes. So I think the biggest one is 1,000 families.
Oh, okay.
And then probably the next one would be like 500 and then 250. So I'm just rounding those out.
Oh, wow. That's actually, that doesn't sound like anything out of the ordinary for here either.
No, but
that's kind of surprising, though, I guess. But
well, not really, because where I come from, that's only 3 parishes in one city.
Right.
Okay. The next collaborative next door okay, has another 3 parishes.
Right.
Okay. And then there are some standalones. So I think in the city of New Bedford, there might be something like 15 or 16 parishes.
Wow.
That's why collaboratives are important, because if not, these churches will close.
Right.
Because there's just not enough staffing, personnel, or money to go around, really, because New Bedford is an economically depressed area.
Sure. Understandable.
Right. So if we don't pool our resources in some way, shape, or form, people are going to be left out. The Bishop of Fall River feels that this is, much like the Archbishop of Boston, feels that this is the best way to go.
Well, like you said, though, it keeps them from having the other option, which is to start shutting down these parishes. And, of course, these parishes were built at a time when there were a lot more Catholics going to church, when there were a lot more priests, when there were a lot more religious to help run the parishes. Transportation wasn't as convenient, I can imagine. Where having a neighborhood parish was something important because you pretty much had to walk there for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Exactly. And right now, these parishes, it's funny because the closest one is 3 minutes away, literally. And the furthest one is about 7 to 10 minutes away.
Sure.
So we're talking a very small geographical area.
They ideally could just combine them into one parish, one church, but which one, who gets, and of course that's always the fights you hear with places like the Archdiocese of Boston, the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, where they have closed churches and combined parishes, and it's caused a fight. So I can understand that completely.
It still does when you start a collaborative, because the first question everybody asks is, so which one of us is closing? Yep. That's the very first thing that happens. And then you got to go from there. Who gets the offices? Where's Father going to live? And that's the first. And right now, this particular collaborative, called the Catholic Community of New Bedford North, is about, I want to say 7 to 8 months old. That's it. That's all it is. And they've consolidated their offices into one church. The pastor lives in the same place. And next year, when we start to begin to do faith formation a little bit differently, it'll be the other 2 parishes and their situations with their halls that will allow me to do faith formation there.
Good. So at least they've got some facilities there you could still use.
Oh, they do. Each one is very different. The one that has the offices is the modern church. Seats about 600, but it's very brick, not brick, but marble inside, but very modern layout. The real French Canadian type structure is the 3 minutes away one. That's St. Joseph St. Therese, and that's already a combined parish. It was 2 separate parishes, but it seats over 1,000, and it's a huge cavernous building. And then Our Lady of Fatima is a little tiny mission church about 10 minutes away that seats about 200.
Wow.
So, but each one has its own character, its own flavor. And what you try to do in a collaborative is bring all that together under one pastor. And we have a different situation. We have a co-pastor situation because one of the pastors is near retirement.
Okay.
So he's sticking around for a couple of years as a co-pastor, but the other one is the younger one is the moderator, which means he's the real one that has to, put this John Hancock on everything.
Sure. Understandable. Yeah. So that's a fun environment, I'm sure, to work in. Haha. No, I'm kidding.
Well, this is my third go round. Yeah. This is I was in a blended parish in Rhode Island 10 years ago. I just finished 5 years in a collaborative in Boston. So I've been through this already. And I tell people, the future is bright if you all work together and learn that this is the way we're going to survive right now.
Yeah. And maybe one day things will change, but for now, this is how it's got to be.
Unless you want to see things close.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got some of the same situations out here. Of course, for those who've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know, I'm in very rural Montana. I'm not in the middle of nowhere, but according to what was it, U.S. News and World Report, I think it was, that did a thing where Glasgow, Montana, which is 70 miles away, is the middle of nowhere in the United States, because it's the furthest from any, you know, decent sized metropolitan area. But I'm in, you know, very rural area, very small towns. You know, combined, I say we have about 150 families for 3 parishes.
Wow.
You know, and we every October we do a count, and we averaged on a weekend for 4 masses, 140 people at mass.
Wow.
And that's 2 in the main parish here in Malta, and then Dodson and Saco, which are 2 small mission parishes, and they both get mass on Sunday usually. So it's and it's a 90-mile round trip weekend, 18 miles one way, 26 miles the other.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets to be a very long, busy Sunday. I'm kind of tired on Sundays usually, but it's good. It's a very different environment though than what you're familiar with. But we do have a lot of the same struggles. You know, our attendance is down, our collections are down. I've got a chapel of occasional worship, we call it, which is basically, it's a former parish that they shut down and merged into the main parish up in the town of Whitewater, which is about 30 miles north of here. And it's a church. The church is still there, which, you know, eventually we need to consider what to do with that, because there's no real chance of it reopening, you know, but it still exists, and it still has some maintenance issues that, you know, need to be taken care of. Some expenses, electricity, you know, keeping the lights on, even if they're not used very often, type of thing, you know, keeping propane to it so it doesn't freeze up in the winter, stuff like that. So it's a very different environment, but it's much the same struggles, and parishes everywhere have the same struggles. We built a lot of churches that we probably, if we were a little less emotional about our churches, which we should be emotional about our churches. You know, our churches are you know, our faith should be a part of our family, and our churches should be where our family gathers. So, but if we were a little less emotional, we would probably say, you know, do we really need that church anymore?
Yeah, that's hard for people to, it's hard for them to give up right now. It really is. That's why we're trying our best to use what we have and keep things available for people. I don't want to say open, because that's the wrong word. I think it's available.
Right.
We need to keep things available for people. And, you know, that the 1,000-seater that we have, they have 2 masses. Each one of these churches has 2 masses a weekend now. That's their schedule. And they're not seating 1,000 people a shot.
No.
The 1,000-seater usually gets about 140 people at the 4:00 mass on Saturday, you know, and the minute it gets darker, that's going to go down.
Right.
And we know that, because the elderly they're the ones who come to the 4 on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a matter of, but we can't close it, because it still serves a purpose to those people in that part of town.
Right.
You know, it was originally a merger of 2 French-Canadian parishes. Now, there hasn't been a French match there in years, probably, although my pastor could probably say Mass in French, because he is French. He's from that area. So he probably could. But nobody does. And that's the only reason why I think that's why we have an abundance of parishes here in the East, because we had a lot of national parishes.
Oh, absolutely.
Polish and Portuguese and French and German and Italian. And they just don't service those communities anymore.
Right.
So it's like, what do you do?
It's a very different model than what we're used to today. But I remember, you know, studying in the Chicago area, they're talking about how there was a particular street corner, if I remember right, there were 3 Catholic churches if not on that street corner, within a block of each other. And it was like the German, the Italian, and the Irish. And heaven forbid you go to the wrong church, even if the mass schedule fit. You know, if you were for an Irishman and you went to the German church, it doesn't matter. You didn't do that. You went to your church.
Exactly. There are two churches in Cranston, Rhode Island, who share a plaza and a cemetery. One was Irish, the other was Italian.
Yeah.
Okay, and you didn't go to. Now, the Italian one has since closed and was sold to the Maronite Rite.
Okay.
Right. So that's perfectly fine.
Still Catholic.
It's still Catholic, and they still allow former parishioners to be buried from there.
Okay.
Which is really a nice arrangement. But they shared a plaza and a parking lot.
Right.
And it was two different parishes.
It was a different environment, but in our modern situation, we're looking at how can parishes best serve the community as a whole, because in the United States as a whole, we have, with some exceptions, with understanding that some neighborhoods are still very ethnicized, we have gotten away from that, at least in the Catholic Church. There's still some situations like that, but I would argue most parishes today, they serve the community as a whole and not just an individual group.
That is, I think I would agree with you there, but here in the East, I still see a little bit more of that.
Right.
Because of the Hispanic influence.
Right.
Okay, my husband, who is a finance and operations manager for Collaborative in Randolph, Mass., he has a high Vietnamese population. So we still see it here in the East, where we still have to have some national presence to whichever group has a national assembly, taking up residence in one of the parishes. There are still Portuguese parishes here in both the Diocese of Fall River and in Providence and in Boston, because there's still a high immigrant population from the Azores.
Sure.
So we're still, but here in Fall River, for example, 3 of those parishes are now starting to talk to each other because they're all in Fall River proper.
Right.
And they need help because there's 2 pastors between them. And one of them is the judicial vicar for the diocese.
Well, that helps.
Yeah. But the problem is he is also a pastor.
Yep.
So he's not just one job, he's 2 jobs. Exactly. So the other pastor is now taking over one of the other parishes. And so they're starting to get into conversation. Yeah. They said it's not going to be a collaborative like we have them, which I can understand. The Portuguese are extremely, extremely attached to their parishes. They'll do anything para igreja, which is for their church. And if they start to combine with the rival churches, and I hate to say it that way, but just growing up in that atmosphere, I know that what it means. It's like, oh, I go to Espiritu Santo. I'm not going to St. Anthony of Padua or Santo Cristo. No way. This is my church. It's going to be interesting, but there are still populations here, maybe not where you are, and even I think west of the Mississippi. I don't think there's a high.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that, because I know I've got priest friends who are places like Phoenix, Arizona, and you don't have Hispanic parishes down there. You have every church has Spanish masses and Spanish ministries, Spanish language masses and ministries instead of an actual Hispanic parish. Interestingly, here in Diocese of Great Falls, Billings, Montana, which is maybe 4% Hispanic, maybe that many.
Wow.
Our Native American population is larger than our Hispanic population. And we actually did at one point have a parish, Our Lady of Guadalupe, which was later absorbed into what we call it in the billing, Our Lady Queen of Peace, Mary Queen of Peace Parish in Billings. It's the southern part of the city. And it just kind of got absorbed into that. And there really isn't a Spanish mass presence there anymore like there was at one point. And so it's really that whole idea is kind of faded in this diocese because, again, we don't have the population. Now, whether or not we have people who need that is another story. And whether or not we have priests who can do it is another story, too. Exactly.
And see, the urban area here in the Northeast, because of places like Boston and Providence that will attract, immigrants or people coming here to study.
Yep.
There is a need for these places, and there'll always be a priest or two, either native to that language or has learned that language, who will go ahead and serve those folks. So we're really kind of used to that. What we're getting now in this part of the country is, we're getting a lot of African nation priests coming here and working in American parishes. That always presents a particular language.
Oh, yes.
Mostly accent. It's if even when their English is really good, it can be difficult sometimes to understand the pattern of their talk.
Yeah. And we have the same issue. We've got a number of priests from Africa. We've got a large number of priests from India that come here. And even, at the best, you've got the accent, but you also have cultural issues. Every once in a while, you do have some cultural interesting ideas come up. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, I will agree with that wholeheartedly. I've spent the last 3 years with a Nigerian priest. So that's a whole other cultural way of life. And nice man. I mean, great priest, nice man. It's just they think differently than we do.
And sometimes that's not a bad thing. Of course, we know multiculturalism is not a bad thing, but you have to know that that minefield is there. Especially for me as a priest, because I've worked with directly where I've had parochial vicars who are Indian, and having to deal with issues there. And it's not a bad thing. Both the priests I worked with that are Indian are, they're good, holy priests. They're priests who want to serve our Lord and they want to serve the people they're over or they're working with. But there's still those issues, and you just got to be aware of them and make sure that they don't become problems. Yeah.
But see, this is the way of the American church right now. It really is. We are at don't want to say we're at a crossroads, but I think we're in a very different place than when I started 38 years ago. Yeah. It was so easy. You knew everybody had their parish. Everybody, things were still changing from the changes of Vatican II. There were people still trying to find their way. And then all of a sudden, we had the beginnings of the sexual abuse crisis.
Right.
I felt it first in Fall River, which I still say that's where it started.
Yeah, that area up there, I would agree with. If not Fall River, Boston, definitely. So that area,
we had it 10 years before Boston did. We had a particular man who pretty much it came out and it was front page and news, and it was, he went to trial, he was convicted, he was sent to prison, and then nothing else happened for 10 more years. And then Boston because everybody thought it was one incident.
Yeah, this is an isolated thing. Yeah, every diocese might have that one guy once in a while, but we get it taken care of and we move on.
And then the lid blew off on Epiphany Sunday. It was just, the lid blew off and that was it. So what happened after that, there was always pre-2002 and post-2002 around here.
Sure.
So before 2002, churches were surviving priests and laity. I mean, heck, we podcast. I used to do cabarets with priests. Okay. We'd go out, we'd sing, we'd raise money. We can't do that now post 2002.
Yeah. You need to be a lot more careful about things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look appropriate anymore to do that. So when that happened, that's when all of this started, and people still use it as their touchstone. Well, I'm just not here in the church anymore because of that.
Right.
Whether or not it's true or whether or not it's a great way to say that was my final straw, I don't know. But the world now of the Catholic Church here is so different, and everything is you walk on eggshells sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Not knowing what to do or say. If you say the wrong thing, then.
Well, it's not just, believe me, it's not just there. It's the church in the United States is very different because of those. And let's be clear, that's not a bad thing.
No.
I think there's a lot of priests who will say this privately, they are upset with the bishops who have, and I hate to say it, continue to allow things like this to happen. And I mean, as last summer or a year ago summer showed, it was a continuing thing after 2002, after the Dallas Charter and everything. We're upset it happened, but in some ways we're also happy that it came out in the open. And because we want to see this stuff cleaned up. You know, we want the church to be a place where people can feel safe, where they can come and not worry about that. And of course, there is sin. We're all sinners. And some of that sin is the horrible sins of abuse. But it shouldn't be allowed to continue. That if it does happen and it's reported, it should go away, as in the person who did it goes away, not it hides. You know, so it's one of those tough things we have to deal with in the church today, is how do we handle that? And we grumble because, of course, as you know, doing faith formation, child protection policy, and all the stuff, classes you have to do, and all the training you have to do with your catechists, and all the hoops and jumps you got to go through. And it's like, we're not the ones causing the problem, but it's for good. It's a good thing. It's just a pain sometimes.
You took the words out of my mouth, because I get a lot of catechists who say that to me. Well, we didn't cause the problem. Why do we have to go through all this? Well, we do, because we want to make sure it never happens again, whether it's us or whether it's the clergy. Doesn't matter. Yeah. We need to do our due diligence, and I'm all for that. I just feel like we've lost. I don't know if we've lost our innocence, but it's almost harder now to let people trust us anymore. Yeah. They don't want to. They're afraid. I don't want to say they don't want to. They're afraid to trust us.
Well, and I think we're afraid of being trusted. I would take it both ways. You know, I would say, I know priests. I mean, I remember how paranoid we were. I mean, just to be alone with a female friend was, just, can I do this? Should I do this? What if someone says something? And I'm hopefully most priests, and, I'll talk about myself included, feel like we can do that, where we don't have to be afraid of someone raising something, as long as we're, one, behaving ourselves and doing, and being proper. I mean, doing what we're supposed to be doing and not committing those acts.
I just think it made it's I stutter a little bit about this because I feel like it used to be, don't give off the wrong impression. Now it's like we don't even put ourselves in the position to give off the wrong impression anymore.
Yeah.
I have a friend who said to me, who's a priest, who said, I didn't mind taking kids home after confirmation if their parents didn't show up. He said, I can't do that now. He said, I can't even hug a kid.
Yeah.
Unless it's out in the open and their parent says it's okay.
And the kid initiates, usually.
Exactly. And that's the kind of thing. It's almost like it's put a barrier between those of us who work in the church and the rest of the church. And I don't think I'm going to see that time when the barrier comes down. I think it's going to be there for quite a while. It
probably will be for much of our lifetimes, at least until, current generations move on and we get the next generations coming in, hopefully.
Hopefully. That's the next thing. Hopefully. One thing we do with collaboratives is we talk more about going into mission work and not maintenance.
Right.
Because those are two big keywords now, that we need to become a mission church again, because quite frankly, I think that's where our people are not with us anymore. So we can't just keep entertaining the choir that's there. We have to kind of go out and that's a whole new thing, because laity weren't supposed to do that before. And now they're looking at us saying, well, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. What do you mean? That's what priests do. That's what nuns did. Nuns did, notice, because we don't have a lot of nuns.
Yeah. Well, and I disagree. I would only say that people got convinced that what the laity weren't supposed to do.
Exactly.
But the laity were supposed to do it, but we had enough priests and nuns and brothers that could go out and do it, so we're fine. Well, and I mean, the history does show that lay people were doing it 100 years ago. They were doing it as that generation of immigrants were coming over. We've got people like Frank Sheed, the author, who was writing about that time about 100 years ago. He was big into doing evangelization, and he was promoting evangelization across the country. And there were groups that were promoting evangelization across the country, but then it just kind of died off, and we haven't gotten really started yet.
Yeah, and I think especially, because you do come from the other side of the country, here in the Northeast, because there were so many priests and nuns and all that, laity were just in the pews, and they did the spaghetti suppers, or they did, that kind of stuff, but they weren't, I don't think they were ever really taught to share their Catholicism, their faith, with anybody else.
Right.
Because everybody was Catholic. Everybody that they were lived in a Catholic neighborhood where everybody and their neighbor was Catholic. Yep. If the stray Protestant or Jew moved in, it was like, oh, but they can be, they're fun, they're friends, and that was one thing when I was growing up. We sang Hanukkah songs in December. And the kids who were, if there were, and I remember distinctly a couple of Jewish kids in the Catholic school I was in, just because their parents didn't want them in public school. Right. They sang the Christmas songs, and no one ever said boo.
Yeah.
No one said boo hiss. It was like, okay, we're all one family.
Exactly.
But now because of the, not having the priestly presence as wide as it was before, now the laity is sitting there going, okay, so you're telling me I have to do this.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, you do. And that, again, is a whole shift in mindset.
It is. And believe me, we have that out here as well. Of course, we've always been mission territory. We've never had enough priests. We've definitely never had enough locally grown priests, shall we say. We've always brought priests in. Now, for a long time, they were priests from places like Ireland, where they spoke more or less the same language. I don't know if you can call English from Ireland the same like. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
It was a different accent.
Yes, but we've always been mission territory. But to actually go out, because those terms of maintenance and mission, those are things that we're focused on, and we're worried about here as well. How do we go out and reach, instead of the NUNS nuns, the NONES nuns, the ones who have no faith, who maybe they grew up in Christian families. We have a lot of people, even in my little town, who grew up in Christian families. They were baptized. They went to church as kids, maybe, depends on if their parents did or not. And now they have no faith. They have no faith life whatsoever. Their religion is sports and hunting and whatever else. And it's the same kind of mindset I know you see there as well, because it's all over the country. This is not anything that's unique to us. It's a real concern for us, though, again, with these small parishes, is how do we bring people back that we know should be here? But they've gotten so caught up in the things of the world, and maybe they did get upset at Father because Father did something or said something they didn't like or didn't agree with, or it hurt them. How do we get them back when they've just kind of drifted away? They left town for a while and they have no faith practice anymore. How do we get them back?
I think we just have to keep our arms open.
Yep.
And I think I was looking at a program called Alpha.
Yep.
And I know that's not decidedly Catholic, but it now has a Catholic component.
Right.
That has started to grow from there. And I think, something we could also equate it to RCIA, but see, I don't want to ever slap the RCIA process into bringing back Catholics.
Right.
Who have gone away. So I think we need not so much a program, but a way in for folks, even if it's just, these either alpha nights or inquiry nights where you invite everybody, you have a meal, you sit down, like parishes used to be.
Yeah.
The social aspect of it. And that's what brings the people to start talking to each other and start talking. The priest is there, or, the pastoral associate is there, and somebody who can answer their questions. More and more of that, more of, I know out here they're doing, four priests are doing something with it. Pints and, what is it? They're doing some sort of a theology on tap.
Theology on tap type, yeah.
Type of thing. And even musicians are getting into it with hymns and beer. Yeah. Although we're doing wine and hymns because we just can't do beer. Just to bring people in. It's a night of just singing hymns or songs that we use at church, but definitely with a different flair.
Right.
And sitting around, in a pub-like atmosphere. And people go, wow, so the Catholics have some fun, huh? Well, the songs aren't bad. We may not do it this way on Sunday mornings, but
yeah, exactly.
It's some way to get them interested because I know that especially when people come through an inquiry, they want what we have, and we have to be happy in what we have. And that's what attracts them. Right. So it's that understanding.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think we've done a little bit of ranting, and we probably got a little bit more coming up here before we get done. But that's not to say that we first of all don't appreciate our Catholic faith. We do. We appreciate what the faith stands for. We love the faith, and we love parish life. It's just it's not easy right now. Parish, if it ever has been. I mean, we can try to make things look rosier than they were, but it's always been hard. But there's a lot of difficulties we're facing right now. And that's why we're talking about this as part of this episode is there's lots of things I don't think people realize that are going on behind the scenes,
But one thing we do have, and that is the Eucharist.
Absolutely.
And that all we're trying to do is keep that going. And Jesus gave us himself.
Yep.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely. And you are part of the equation, and I am part of the equation, and we need to keep that going.
Right. And we can very easily lose sight of that. And when we can go out and share that, and this is the challenge for us as Catholics, is how do we share that? How do we go out and say to people, going to Mass is important to me, not just because of the community. Because I'll be honest, there are times when I don't want to look at any of them, and they don't want to look at me.
And you have a very interesting vantage point.
And it's just like, but because we gather as a community, as the body of Christ, to receive him, body, blood, soul, and divinity, and to be present at his sacrifice again. We don't re-sacrifice him, but we are at the same sacrifice every time we attend Mass. And how do we talk about that beauty? And I that's where I think a lot of Catholics got shaken when that Pew survey came out, when it said that only like a third to 2/5 of Catholics actively believe that it is Jesus' body, blood, soul, and divinity. I think that's what shook them.
It didn't surprise me.
Me neither. I mean, I knew the numbers were low, just not that bad. So it's a difficult thing, but it is something we need to do, though, is being able to get out there and talk about what our faith is about. And that's where I like things like St. Paul's street evangelization. Getting out there and talking, how to get out there and talk about your faith and do it in a way that is not confrontational.
That's the hardest part.
Especially since so much of when we talk about our faith is going to touch on topics that might be confrontational, or at least someone might see as confrontational. So that gets hard.
And then if you're like me, I just get overly excited, and very impassioned.
Get the adrenaline going. Yep.
Yeah. And, and I just let go, and it's like, oops, that's not helping anybody.
No, it's hard. It's hard to step out of that. And unfortunately our social media does not help situations at all.
Oh, gee. No, it does not.
I'm sorry. Facebook and Twitter is not the place to have a discussion.
No.
Period. At all. I mean, it's just, don't even bother trying, because 90% of the time, all you're going to do is be mad, and the other guy's going to get mad, and you're just not going to accomplish anything. So why bother?
No, actually, you probably get madder than the other guy, and you're the one, bruised for a while, and that's not good for you either.
Nope.
So,
yeah, I mean, so that's the big issue we need to deal with. And then I think to kind of close out our discussion here, to talk about the big elephant in the room that no priest likes to talk about, but parishes don't make a lot of money.
Believe me, I am not in ministry for the money.
No, not at all. I'm not either. But that's kind of a consequence of the fact that we're not bringing people in. We're not growing our numbers in many places. That our numbers are shrinking, is the money shrinks too. And that leads to a lot of these discussions that lead to collaboratives and clusters and joining parishes. They might have the people for it. They just don't have the money.
Because I'm not sure people realize how much their contributions mean to putting forth what they're looking for in their parish.
Exactly.
They think that $5 a week in the basket is going to do it.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, no, you have just the same things you have at your home, that you have, lighting and heat and repairs. And then you have a staff. You have to pay the priest. He doesn't get that much money, but you still have to pay him. Yeah,
exactly.
And he has the rectory and all of that goes with it. You have your secretaries and your DR, your DFF like I am, your pastoral associates. These are all people, your musicians. These are all people who work there. Before it used to be the little old lady who used to be the piano teacher, then she'd play the organ at Mass, and the nuns would come in and fill in some of the gaps, and it doesn't happen that way anymore. So they have no realization. And if you mention tithing in the Catholic Church, oh my, you see a bunch of minds blown.
What do you mean I need to give 10% of my income to charity?
Yeah, no, it's not. See, and see, I'm a big person for tithing, only because I went to a Protestant Bible college for 4 years and really understood what that meant.
Yeah.
And said, you know what, we really should be giving God the first fruits.
Exactly.
That's it's his.
Deal. Yeah. And that's we see survey after survey that says, by and large, Catholics are one of the worst groups for giving money. There are groups like the Mormons. There are some of these evangelical Protestant groups that are fantastic at tithing. And Catholics, if we give 2%, we're doing good.
And I saw that when I was in ecclesiology for my master's degree in the 80s, it was 2%. I don't think it's risen above 2%. In fact, I'm sure it's gone down to 1%.
I think what I've seen is it's closer to 1%, if not right at 1%. And as Catholics, that should shame us. We should be, because we expect so much out of our parishes, and yet we don't give to support it. And I had to. Part of the reason why I wanted to make sure to bring this into this episode is this past week I had to do the letter to the parish about our financial situation. That we're surviving, but barely, and it was time to kind of let people know, okay, we need to do something about this. And I'm hoping it kind of lit a fire under a few people. And I want to talk more about it. I'm going to need to talk more about the need to give generously, to give 10% of your income, and it doesn't all have to go to the parish. I know the bishops use this as a guideline. I've seen other groups do this as a guideline where it's 5% your parish, 5% other charities.
Exactly.
I think that's fantastic. I think that's amazing, because if Catholics gave that 10%, your parishes would grow big time, and other charities would be supported big time. And that would be just amazing to see. I would love it if the parishioners here did that. And we've got a couple, we've got some generous parishioners. Don't get me wrong. I know a handful. Again, we're talking, a small number. So it's only a handful, but I know some parishioners that are very generous, but I've also had one parishioner recently basically say I'm not giving anything until things change. Well, what needs to change? Basically everything, it's an excuse. More often than not, that's an excuse. It's not actually I'm not going to give. I've got these list of demands, or otherwise I don't give. It's, oh no, I'm not giving because I'd rather spend the money on toys and hobbies and my things.
Mm-hmm. And I know that's what happens. And I know that I haven't met a priest yet who likes to have the money talk.
Mm-mm.
It's got to kill you to have to get up there and say, we're in this situation, because then all eyes are on you saying, well, why didn't you manage the money better?
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I'm going to do next week is publish the budget for the parish, where, trust me, some of these parishioners make more money than I'm spending for this parish as a whole. So, there needs to be good management on the part of the priest. You're absolutely right. And they're absolutely right on that. I, as a priest, cannot go out and spend $500, $600, $700 a month on food for just me.
Right.
I as a priest can't go and buy, brand new computers, brand new Apple, MacBook Pros on the parish account. And for the record, my MacBook Pro was bought with my salary. So it was my money that bought it, but I can't go and say, oh, my DRE needs a new computer and my office manager needs a new computer, so I'm going to spend $2,000 each. No, can't do that. It's going to probably be a $400 and $500 computer when that time comes. If, Windows basic computer,
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
I know.
That's why I buy my own computer.
Exactly. But you know what? I'd love to at some point, how we publish, a lot of places will publish what they make every week, what they get in the collection to show people. It would really be an interesting accounting if we were to break that down someday by envelope number.
They used to do that. I don't know if that's such a good idea, but I understand what you're saying.
We've never done it. And if somebody's done it, I would really like to hear how that worked. But you know what I mean? It's like, so you want the priest to be accountable and you want us who work there to be accountable. How about you? You need to be accountable too. We're all in this together. And,
it almost without fail. I mean, yes, you get the people who give money, kind of like the who was it? The Pharisee or the rich man who was, he had the trumpets blaring as he's dropping the money into the collection basket there at the temple, and the widow who leaves the 2 mites. And that's so true today, where you get the widow who's on Social Security and very, 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 very limited income, and she's given very generously as she can. It might only be $10 or $15 a month or a week, but for her, that $40 to $50 a month is a lot of money, and she's given it.
And a lot of them have been supporting the church for decades. They really have.
For a long time. Some of these, some of those churches you're talking about back east were built off of those widows.
And that's why it's a shame to see them come down too.
Absolutely.
I've seen 2 of them come down recently, and more are going to come down.
So, but money is always a concern in a parish. And again, you'll hear stories of parishes where they've got multi-million-dollar budgets, and they're able to do anything and everything they want to do. And they could use more, but they've got more than enough money to do what they need. And most parishes aren't like that.
I'd like it if some of the parishes down south would start, making the northern parishes up here their sister parish, because our snowbirds are down there.
Yeah.
And that's where the money's going. They're either retiring down there or just going down there 6 months of the year.
Yeah, we have very similar issues like that as well. And one thing I'm encouraging a lot of our snowbirds to do is do online monthly giving.
Yes.
And don't change it when you're gone. Just leave it alone. And yes, those parishes down there need to be supported.
Of course.
They get help from them. They get service from them. They get mass from them. But don't forget your parish at home.
That's right.
Baptized your kid, that you got married in, and baptized your kids, and your kids got married in. Don't forget that parish too, But it's a tough. Money right now is a tough issue, and things are getting more expensive, as they always do. Inflation's always been with us and will be with us for a long time to come.
It will be, and I don't want to leave anybody thinking that this is just one of those rant sessions. neither you especially nor I would do any of this if we didn't believe what we believe.
Absolutely.
And are called to be it. I mean, you are called to be in persona Christi, and I am called within my vocation of marriage to give my, talents over to the church. And I have accepted that. I could have done many other things in my life, especially with a master's degree.
Oh, yeah.
And with a music degree. But this is where I felt led and continue to be sustained. And I know I'm here for the long haul. And I just keep saying that, God, you brought me here. You make it happen. You make it work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel the same way. I could have done anything with life. I was a computer guy. I could have gotten my, degree in computer science or something like that and continued to work on computers and, all that kind of stuff. But God called me elsewhere, and I wouldn't change. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing, although some days I might disagree with that, depending on what kind of mood I'm in. But
come on, we're human. We know.
There's those days where I wake up and I look in the mirror. It's like, why am I doing this again? And of course, the answer is always for Jesus and his people. And I might want to smack some of his people upside the head, Gibbs and NCIS, smack upside the head, but still love it and wouldn't leave I've been a priest for 11 years, and I'm grateful for the time I spent as a priest. And I hope, I'll be one of those priests that will die with his boots on.
Good for you. Yeah, right. And I know I've got probably 10 more years to retirement. So, but I don't think I'll ever be far enough away. I'll probably be subbing in some church when I'm 80.
That works.
As long as my fingers work, that's fine.
Yep. As long as you can keep going. That's kind of my opinion too. So we love the church. We love our parishes. We love our parishioners. We just, we wanted to, bring out some of the issues in parishes and kind of help people see that life in parishes aren't quite as rosy as we would hope.
And the next time, those of you out there who are Catholic, and you're in your parish, kind words to those who work there go a long way. We know we're there to fix your problems sometimes, but, work with us because we'll work with you. We do take a lot of, and people get frustrated and we take a lot of that. And I think any service oriented will do that. But remember why we're there too.
Yep. Exactly.
This is all for the glory and honor of God. And, we understand the humanness of the situation and we're there to help.
Absolutely.
So don't scream at me tomorrow.
Yeah. Great last words as we finish up this discussion. Get on to our picks of the week because we've had a good long discussion, which is a good thing.
Yes, we have.
But I want to thank everyone for listening to Let's Talk. We do enjoy putting on this podcast and other podcasts. It's been a privilege to be able to host this podcast for the past year and a half. I am actually going to use this opportunity to announce that I'm going to be stepping down as host of Let's Talk in about a month. My last episode of Let's Talk will be the episode releasing 19th of November. It's been a joy to do Let's Talk. I just talking about all these issues in parishes and everything. My schedule has just gotten to the point where I can't continue to do it. So but I appreciate everyone who's listened, who's sent feedback, who's shared, who's just enjoyed our shows. And so hopefully we'll be able to continue Let's Talk. We do plan on finding a new host. Might take some time. We might have to go on hiatus for a while. But we want to find a new host and see if we can get it going again and keep sharing issues and topics that are of interest and concern. So, but thank you to everyone for everything. Like I said, we got a couple more episodes before I finally do step down. So you're not done with me yet, but we're going close. But I do thank everyone who's listened to Let's Talk and all our SQPN podcasts. We've got some great podcasts. By the way, I still will be on Secrets of Doctor Who and Star Trek. I got to have some fun still.
Oh, and secrets of technology.
And technology, of course, as well.
Yes.
Once in a while. I got to talk about our toys, our favorite things, technology. So favorite toys, but I hope you're sharing our shows and liking them on Facebook and YouTube and leaving comments and all those good things. We like to hear from you and we like to hear what you think of our shows. We also appreciate those who do support SQPN, of course, like we talked about, parishes needing your financial support. Well, so does SQPN if you want to keep these podcasts going. And we thank those, especially who have subscribed to our Patreon campaign, which you can find at sqpn.com/give. This week, I want to give special thanks to Joel D., Christopher L., Carrie C., Betsy W., and Jarrett B. Thank you to you and all of our Patreon patrons. Won't be much longer. I have to try to keep doing that tongue twister. Patreon patrons. But thanks to our Patreon patrons who have been keeping the lights on, keeping the shows going. We greatly appreciate it. And it helps us to keep these shows going because we've got more ideas coming forward that we want to do. And it's through your help that we can do that. So if you aren't a Patreon supporter, please do go to sqpn.com/give. That's sqpn.com/give. And you can click on the Patreon link there and go to our campaign and see how you can help us on a monthly basis to keep SQPN going. So now we're going to jump to our picks of the week. So I'll let you go first.
And boy, am I going to go way off topic with
Perfect.
This. I have been I will be honest, I was out of work for 4 months. And so I did a little bit of reading finally. And I picked up a really interesting book called The Stranger in My Genes. Genes, a memoir by Bill Griffith. And this is I believe he's on, I don't know if it was ABC or I think, no, it's MSNBC. He's a contributor for MSNBC and he's a genealogy buff. And he was doing his family tree, took a DNA test and found out, dun, 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 somebody wasn't his parent.
Uh-oh.
Right. And that is happening more and more nowadays with people taking DNA tests, and all these family secrets are coming to the fore. It's a very interesting look at how he handles that, with his family, with the parent who was left behind and found out, and he also has done a sequel. I have not read the sequel yet, but it's an interesting journey as to how he dealt with it. And I think it's something people should pick up, especially for all those people who have done the DNA tests.
Yes.
Because you never know. One of these days you could get that little email that says, I think I'm related to you somehow. And it's just the humanness of life. I'm sure many people throughout the centuries never knew things like this occurred. They know them now. So it's a small book. It's about 196 pages, but it was a really interesting read. It's a good afternoon, by the pool or by the fireplace read for you. So it's called The Stranger in My Genes, a memoir by Bill Griffith. And I got it on Amazon. I got it as an Kindle book, as an ebook. So it comes paperback and ebook.
Oh, very good.
I'll give you
that
the
sounds
link
interesting.
for that.
Yeah, that's so many things where we're learning more about our background and our heritage. And, you hear stories of people who didn't quite find what they were expecting when they looked back.
Mm-hmm. And it can happen to anybody.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So very good. My pick this week is an organization that has been around, speaking of charities and charities that help out with mission work. One organization I think a lot of people are very familiar with, but they're familiar with them because of their calendars. And that organization is Catholic Extension. A lot of parishes in the United States especially have Catholic Extension calendars, myself included. We get them every year, and I always love them. They're beautiful parish calendars, and we give them away for free because they've got the saints listed, the saints' feast days, and everything listed. But they're also a promotion for our parish. But Catholic Extension does a lot of really good work, especially in much more rural areas, mission areas, mission dioceses where there are a lot of parishes that can't support themselves for one reason or another. So we get support from Catholic Extension here in my Diocese of Great Falls Billings. They do a lot of good work, especially on our Indian reservations, to help support the parishes, to take care of projects, to help build churches. We've got, as a matter of fact, some of the parishes I've served in have actually had plaques on the inside of the door. I believe this one does as well, if I remember right. It's here at St. Mary's here in Malta has a plaque where this parish was built thanks to the generosity of so-and-so through the Catholic Extension Service, where some very generous benefactor gave a good chunk of money to help that parish be built. And maybe it was something that he said, I want a parish built in Montana. Maybe he just said, I just want to help build a parish somewhere. And so Catholic Extension was able to give some of that money when the parish was built. When a parish needs remodeling, when they need to buy something as simple as like mass vestments or chalices and things like that for their church, when construction needs to be done, when sometimes just to help get ends met, get bills paid. Catholic Extension helps out with so much of that. So I would encourage everyone to check out Catholic Extension, go to their website, look at the projects they do. They have Extension Magazine they've published for years. Look at the stuff that their money is used for. It's always used to help with the Catholic Church in the United States, and they do a lot of really good work. And if your parish has those Catholic Extension calendars, make sure to pick one up because they are supporting the Catholic Extension mission, and they're great calendars too. I love their Saints of the Month, Saints and Angels calendar, they call it. I get that every year for our parish, and they're just beautiful calendars too, beautiful artwork. So check that out for Catholic Extension. So, well, thank you, Joanne. Thank you for opportunity to visit about all these issues we have as parish workers in the parish. Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me now at the Catholic Community of New Bedford North. That is ccnbn.org. And we're just a little collaborative in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And take a look at us and see that, see all the work that we're trying to do. And I want to take the opportunity quickly, Father Cory, to say thank you for hosting this show and for being the ringmaster that keeps us all together. Thank you so much for being there and help, especially helping me out with all my microphone problems.
Yeah, we've had some technical difficulties, but we've worked through it. That's part of working on these things, and it's been my great pleasure. It truly has. I've enjoyed it. I don't want to go too much into the goodbyes yet, because like I said, I got a couple more episodes coming up, and I hope you'll join us for those episodes. In the meantime, and afterwards, you can find me at my website where I post my homilies, Father Cory, frcory.org. You can find my Facebook page, Father Cory Sticha. And again, I will be around. I'll still be on the couple of the secret shows, Doctor Who and Star Trek and Tech, and who knows, I'll pop up other places. I may even come back to Let's Talk once in a while when we get a new host and get it going again. Hopefully I won't be a stranger here either. So anyways, if you have any feedback for this episode or any episodes of Let's Talk, you can send that to letstalk@sqpn.com, or again, comment on the SQPN Facebook page or on the YouTube version of this episode. Thank you for listening, and God bless.